Friday to you. We are live. It is January I got to check here, the 19th. It is our second, I do know it is our second live of 2024. I think I have at least that much right. Thrilled to be here with you to answer that wedding officiant question of the week, which I get asked so often because so many of the people I help are not just officiating the wedding, but they are actually friends or relatives of the couple. And sometimes they are asked to pull double duty, which means they are asked to walk in the processional, but also somehow be at the front officiating the wedding. You can't duplicate yourself. So, how do you do that? I can't wait to get to that and answer that question. But in the chat, if you are here live, I'm so thrilled that so many of you are able to make it. Pop in where you're watching from, what you're doing. I do see a lot of familiar faces, and what I love most about this is that so many of you jump in, even when I would say this topic is not all that relevant to, people like Ralph and Karen, who are amazing professional wedding officiants. Yeah, I know Elaine. There's so many of you who are members of Unboring Wedding Academy. You are pros. You do this professionally, and so this is not necessarily a relevant topic to you, but so glad you are joining live. I am really excited to just get this video out there because like I said, I get asked this so much that I am really excited to just be able to tell people, not just the answer, but then say, go watch this video explaining what you can do when you are, for example, the father of the bride and also officiating the wedding. I get asked all the time, what do I do? How do I walk in? How do I do and be in two places at once? What's the best way to do this? So we're going to cover that. Lisa's here. Good to see you from LMC Wedding. I think one of our newest members of Academy. So thrilled you're here, Lisa. I think I just shot you a bonjoro. So hello to you. Tamara from the cold Midwest. This is a theme among everybody here. Nice and cold, right? I'm seeing even in Florida, cold. Mike was here way before anybody else and told us there's going to be temperatures in the 30s this week, which for us Canadians and the rest of the world, I like to remind my American friends, is Celsius 0-ish, somewhere in there. Today I was supposed to be skiing with the family. We were just going to take work off, take school off, and go skiing. But when we woke up this morning, it was minus 18 plus a wind chill, which in Fahrenheit, what is that? The tens? I don't know. But it was just like, you can put a lot of great ski gear on. The problem is you got those boots. The boots is where you hit your limits of technology. Your toes are going to freeze. There's not much you can do. I know Kirsty, I don't know if she's here today from Ontario. She skis 100 days of the year, every single day. And she probably knows what it's like to ski when it's minus whatever. But, when you got a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, I'm not going to blame them. I wouldn't enjoy it either. I would probably be the biggest wuss up there with the frozen toes. So I got to be here. I'm so thrilled. We are planning again for next Friday, so don't look for me then. And I think some of this inconsistency is, not great for coming on live. I look forward to getting a little bit more in the groove. We are stumbling into January or out of January or through January here when it comes to the lives. But I'm thrilled to be here on here today. Now, I really want to check in on the chat here. So many amazing people starting to pile in. It was a bit of a quiet start. Rookie Fisherman is saying something is wrong. I hope everything's okay. I think, is that Leo? Hope you're doing okay. Sabrina made it. Phew. Yes, you did. And I've got this runway, right? I'm not going to dive right in. We're 4 minutes in here and I haven't said anything useful or helpful at all. So that's just for you to get ready, get in. But I do enjoy seeing who's here. Let me scroll back in here. Oh, Opie is here. There's always something new to learn from you and discussions in the chat. That's true. Come for the video and stay for the chat or something like that. It is a great time for you to connect, for members to connect. And as I said, I love seeing so many members of Unboring Wedding Academy in the chat. If you're not a member yet and you want to become a member, unboringweddingacademy.com. Come on in. You get to be in a Facebook group with these 600 people, and you get access to the Love Story Caster, which is our tool that will write your couple's love stories for you, and access to the training and all the tools and the resources and ongoing relationship with me directly. So lots of good stuff. And this community is a huge part of what makes it amazing. Shore Point's Notary, Charlie from the Jersey Shore. It's probably cold there as well. Canner Mark is here. I wonder how things are in Cali, Mark. You officiated your daughter's wedding, gave your warm-up act, vanished to join her in the processional lineup, walked her down, turned around, sang the opening blessing. Mic drop, Mark. That's it. I just read your comments, so people don't need to stay anymore. Really, that's it. Did you see what Mark said? I might as well just sign off now. That is, Mark, how you nail it. I personally have never turned around and sung an opening blessing. That might be where we differ. My kids are 9 and 11, so of course another way we differ is I have not officiated my daughter's wedding. Amazing that you could do that. I think it depends where you are on the Enneagram. I don't want to use too much woo-woo stuff. I don't know if you've heard of the Enneagram before. I kind of like, it's like kind of a personality scale, one of those things. Less scientific than the Myers-Briggs, but more ancient and perhaps interesting. Anyway, I'm a 3, and I am in the heart group, so I'm kind of a crier, to be honest. Did you know that about me? I don't put that out there, but emotionally, I'm quite the crier. I feel things and it just comes out. Usually when it's happy. Sad things don't make me cry, but happy things make me I cry at Star Wars cartoons when there's a touching moment. So I don't know how I could officiate my my kids' weddings. I do not know what's going to happen if that day comes. Starly Flame is here in Georgia, and Chanel is here from Okanagan, Okanagan, USA. Interesting. I did not even know there was an Okanagan, USA. This is another. I come here to learn from you about geography and stuff. Leo is here. Hopefully you're okay. What, and something is wrong. Hopefully that's sorted there. Chanel, it's ridiculously cold. Yeah, I think you're probably commenting on the temperature that I was saying that prevented us from going skiing today. Mark Honeyman, love that you're here, and gear up your questions because I'm going to go through this, what you're supposed to do. I basically expound on Mark's comment when you are officiating and in the processional. And then I'm happy to take any questions. So another Michigander, Mark, always representing with Sabra, et cetera, et cetera. And you're doing double duty as a snowbird. I thought you were going to say, I'm doing double duty in a processional and officiating a wedding. You're just doing double duty as a snowbird. Good for you. That's living the dream. I hope to be that one day. Yes, Fort Myers has been a bit chilly and rainy. So I imagine you kind of fled the south, but it's chilly and rainy. It looks even a little chilly in Texas, according to Sabrina. And I'm just going through Mark. Mark, you're not getting a ton of sympathy. That's right. I mean, hey, I live in Canada. Winter is a big part of it. We didn't get a drop of snow through Christmas until this week, actually. So I'm in the Christmas spirit now, but it's a little late for that, right? So Leo, you're saying the live is freezing. I hope other people aren't experiencing that. I will say I have had pretty bad internet the last couple days in our town, so that might happen. And if the plug gets pulled on this, what can I say? We're at the mercy of Bell up here with the internet. I do have the fastest internet money can buy. I am plugged into my computer, not Wi-Fi. So I've done what I can, and the rest is just up to fate. When we're live, anything can happen. Rebecca is here. Thrilled to finally be here. Love to see you, Rebecca. It's been a while. Craig, always honored that you're here. Just crushing it in the GTA. Craig Logan is quite the guru of officiating, so that's amazing. Okay, too many comments. I am catching up. Selena's saying, I'm not freezing for you. Good. It is freezing outside, but I'm glad Your internet is not freezing. Too cheesy. Elaine says, I officiated at my daughter's wedding 8 years ago as a registrar. Amazing. Wonderful experience. Once in a lifetime. Had a lump in my throat, but didn't cry. You must have been holding on by your fingernails. That's amazing. Judith is here from Toronto. And Rebecca, you're officiating your nephew's wedding next weekend. 275 guests. Wowzers. I envy you. That I've never officiated that big. I think weddings in Canada typically just don't get that big, unfortunately. So I'm a little jealous. Love that you're using the Love Story Caster, which is amazing. Love that you spelled it with an E. Because Cantor Mark never spells it with an E. He spells it with an O, as do many members of Unboring Wedding Academy, affectionately, which, of course, now we call it the Beaver. But the Love Story Caster, of course, is where you paste in your couple's answers, click a button, and get a really fun story delivered back to you. Little tweaking is sometimes necessary. It is AI after all, but I've programmed it so it has a really fun tone, very lighthearted, a little bit cheeky, and so you never quite know what the machine is going to do. And so there you go. So I want to get, Mike is saying you're hoping to officiate for your 3 daughters. Wifey says no. All the best with that, Mike. I'm here to solve some of your problems, but not all of your problems. And I can't convince your wife otherwise. Let's get to it. I think when people reach out to me and say, hey, Mark, I'm a father of the bride, as Mike hopes to be, and they're also in the processional. So I even had just a friend recently who I was on the phone with as part of my coaching program, and she said, listen, I'm officiating, but I'm also a bridesmaid. And I said, well, is there any way you can like avoid coming in the processional? She said, no, there's two, and we're all walking in pairs, and my couple want me to walk in the processional and officiate the wedding. And so I pulled out the solution. And so I think when people are asking me these questions, they are thinking about the typical maybe 2 ways that a ceremony starts. For some reason in the movies, whenever you see a wedding or on TV, and so this does happen in the real world. And I, early in my officiating career, had some planners just tell me when I arrived on site, here's how we're starting the ceremony. Everyone's going to be lined up at the back. We're going to start the music, and you will walk in, and everyone else will walk in. And basically, I got thrown into the processional along with everybody else, which means the first time that you open your mouth is when everybody's in. Perhaps if there's a bride in that wedding, you might say, please stand for the bride. But that's literally the first words you say. In that case, of course, I think that's where they're saying to me, they're saying, is it okay to come in as part of that, just a normal bridesmaid or something like that, or the father of the bride, for example, often escorting his daughter down, will say, how do I, when they ask me, they're thinking, well, how do I get to the front and then maybe ask the question of myself, who blesses this union or something like that? Or when we get to the front, do I step around? At what point do I get actually into place? That kind of thing. So again, we're talking about a traditional model where the officiant is, thrown in and walks in with the music, or this is another thing, the officiant just walks up there, stands there, doesn't say anything, and the processional music starts, and of course, everybody walks in. So in both of those scenarios, you either have no officiant at the front and the music just starts, or the officiant goes to the front, says nothing, the music starts immediately. And I think there's a lot of question around, is it okay to just walk in the processional and then shimmy around and take my place? Now, that is an easy yes, sure, that could work. But I think the people who ask me are very aware of what I say is absolutely necessary for a great, and I would say unboring style wedding, where everyone is loosened up. It's a great crowd. So for example, 275 guests, you want them to be loose, having fun. You want to have broken the fourth wall with them. I always say, what makes guests leave a wedding and say, what made that so amazing? Like, yes, the officiant was fun and told a great story, but what was it that made it so great? And a lot of time they can't put their finger on it until you tell them. So I'm telling you the secret, which is often you're just engaging them. And by engaging them, by talking to the guests directly, you make them feel included in what's going on. I don't know. I've been to ceremonies where you just feel like you're watching everything on television. You're there, but or it's like an aquarium, a zoo. There's glass. You're there, but you're not really there. Everything important is happening up front. You could be there or not there. Take it or leave it. You don't want that for a great wedding. When the guests feel like they're involved and they're included, they can't put their finger on it. But as the officiant, you use the you, boy, that was a lot of long you sounds. You use the you voice. Most of the ceremony, you're talking to the guests. And of course, that means most of the ceremony, you are talking about the couple in the third person. So you talk about Sam and Alex. Let me tell you the story of how Sam and Alex got here today. This love story begins with a swipe. Sam is looking on her phone one day like any other and then sees Alex's, and you're not talking to the couple, you're talking to the guests. Well, that starts with the opening remarks. So the opening remarks both make this a bit tricky when you're officiating and in the processional, but they are also what saves you from any awkwardness of coming in the processional and then surprise taking your place at the front. And that's where the guests see for the first time, oh, I guess that bridesmaid is also officiating, or holy cow, the father of the bride or the mother of the bride is also officiating. Wow. We kind of want to avoid that like surprise moment in the processional, but we also want to be able to say opening remarks. When do the opening remarks happen? They happen before the processional. And that is the officiant's chance, the officiant's opportunity, the officiant's time to start right out of the gate speaking to the guests. Remember, we're going to be speaking to the guests for at least 80% of the ceremony. You start talking to the couple maybe in a reflection at the end of your speech, and of course for maybe if you're asking them to repeat vows. But even when we get to elements in the ceremony, you want to say to the guests, Sam and Alex will now exchange vows. Sam and Alex will now exchange rings. I really, really think that's a choice. You can say, Sam and Alex, you will now. But when you're talking to the guests the whole time, I learned this early on in my officiating, they can't put their finger on, as I said, why it was so great. And that is a real secret. Remember this, keep this in your toolbox when you're writing a script. You are always informing the guests and talking to the guests about what Sam and Alex, or your couple, of course, are doing. That starts with the opening remarks. So, of course, here's what I'm going to recommend when you are, and Ken or Mark said it already, when you are officiating and have to be in the processional. You don't want to say, well, I guess I can't do any opening remarks. No, the opening remarks are key for connecting with the guests, getting them relaxed, establishing a rapport with them, getting them on your side. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to, again, so let's imagine it's start time. I always talk about you go to the back, you give the couple, everybody in the line, the attendants, everybody who's lined up to come in, you give them a little pep talk, okay? So if you are in the processional and officiating, there will not be time to do the pep talk after you first walk up there. Okay, so I'm going to say, if you're kind of making a bullet point order, first thing is you go back with everybody, line up, make sure everyone's in place. If we're talking about a bride being one of the marriers and she's coming in last, you go make sure the bride is in place, not in the car, in line, and make sure everybody's lined up. Make sure there's that space for you, that hole in the processional lineup, wherever that is. Example, bridesmaid, okay, your place as the attendant is with whoever is escorting you or walking in with you. That spot's open. Or of course, if you're a parent, that spot, you're ready to come and jump back in line. But you give that pep talk, okay? And I've talked about this. I do this in my training, of course, in Unboring Wedding Academy. But last thing, you go back, you say, okay, are we ready? Remember, we've practiced. We're going to relax. whatever happens up there is going to happen. We are on team Sam and Alex, and no matter what happens, they're going to be married. So are you ready to have a great time? And you're just talking to the wedding attendants like this. So guests often hear the cheer and the whoops, and of course they're wondering what's going on back there. The wedding attendants, there's already a party happening back there. That's the point where you walk in as the officiant. So I always recommend, sometimes in rarer occasions you might come in for the side or something, but I recommend, because guests are still checking their emails, or they're on their phones, or they're chit-chatting, catching up with long lost relatives, you want to make a bit of a scene by walking straight down that aisle. So everyone says, okay, somebody's coming. You got your binder, you get right to the front, you turn around. Now, sometimes I will have a bunch of attendants in tow. For example, if one of the marrier's attendants are coming in the processional, but the others are starting at the front. So this is common for grooms. Maybe the groomsmen are not in the processional, but the bride's wedding party is. That is where you would march in. They would take their place across the front. Maybe one of the marriers seats a couple of parents at that time, just as the last honorary formal guests, then takes their place. This is the moment. So either you come in alone and they're all in the processional, or you're up there with them before the processional starts. That's a couple of ways of organizing that. And then you give your opening remarks. Now, I do have a whole video on YouTube about how to give the opening remarks, the structure, what you're going to say, what that is for. You're breaking the ice with the guests. You are saying whether or not people can take pictures. You are telling people to turn off their phones. And this is a time to kind of, I wouldn't say crack any jokes, but just like be really light. Tell guests that the professional photographers use their names before a wedding. I always go and ask them if I haven't worked with them before or don't know their names. I'll say, what's your name? Because I do want to say, Tiffany and Mary are the professional officiants today, the professional photographers today. They'll be taking great pictures, much better pictures than you'll ever take. So don't worry, put your phones away, keep it light, that kind of thing. And then you say, now in my case, after the opening remarks, you just say, are you ready to get these two married? Everybody says, yeah. And then you say, let's begin. The processional music starts and in everybody comes. Now, here is where I think I get a lot of questions. Mark, I hear you talk about opening remarks, but what about if I also need to be in the processional? This is where, instead of saying, let's begin, I have always advised, now I've never had to do this myself, but I always advise, and it works. I like to teach what I know what you teach, right? And I only like to teach what I've done. In this case, I haven't done this, but this is the way to have your cake and eat it too. And I've, advised hundreds of people to do this, and it works beautifully. Where instead of then, of course, saying, should we get these two hitched? Let's begin. You say, should we get these two hitched? Everybody says, yeah, because again, you're getting that feedback from the crowd, inviting them to participate. And this is where you say, all right, well, I'm about to walk out of here, not because, and again, you can kind of be lighthearted, not because I need to go to the washroom or I'm having second thoughts about this or something, get a little chuckle. You say, I have some very important processional walking duties to attend to, and so I'm going to join those coming in, and I will see you in a few minutes. That is kind of how you say what you're doing. Of course, you've already made a splash as the officiant. Everyone knows you're the officiant, so you won't have that weird, awkward, surprise moment that we want to avoid, because we never want to take attention off of the couple. I always say no surprises, especially for the couple in the wedding, except, of course, the love story, which we want to reserve and keep for them as a surprise. No unpleasant surprises and nothing jarring that will give people to talk about after other than the couple. So in this case, you've already introduced yourself as the officiant, connected with them, loosened everybody up. You say that little thing right at the end of your opening remarks about cameras and phones and turn stuff off and all that stuff. You've introduced yourself. And then you say, of course, as I said, I'm going to step out now. I'm not leaving for this or that reason. You can make up something kind of a little bit lighthearted there and say, I will be coming in the processional. I'll rejoin. I'll see you in a few minutes. And then you go. Now, you're not going to run here, but you're also not going to dilly-dally. That's just sort of kind of bad karma. We typically don't go, nobody turns around and goes up the aisle. It's just not a thing. So try to sweep around, go around the side aisle, or you come in down the aisle. But if you're leaving to rejoin the processional, go out around, and then take your place in line. And this should be fairly quick, which is why I said you want to have already done your pep talk. You want to have everybody in that row and that hole for you. Everybody's ready to go when you give your opening remarks. And then when you come back there, bang, you're in place, and the processional song starts and people start to move, which is why I say you could have a DJ sort of fade something in if you think you'll be longer than 30 seconds to a minute. But if it's just 30 seconds or a minute, the DJ could start the music pretty quickly. As soon as you kind of start making your way back, that would be fine. What we're trying to avoid is 1 to 2 minutes of just nothing but silence. People will be more hushed now than they were before. You're not going to just get an explosion of conversation again after you do that. There will be a hush because you've kind of started things off. And this is where, like I said, sometimes the marrier and their party will already be there. I do advise against that when I am talking to officiants, just because you're literally leaving them hanging out. If you are in the processional and officiating, to me, it's best to do the opening remarks alone up there and then leave and then just have everybody come in as part of the processional. Like I said, we're trying to avoid a couple things: the dead air, 2 minutes of awkwardness. But then, of course, secondly, we're trying to avoid leaving the groom just kind of standing at the guests and staring at the guests for a minute with nothing to say, nothing to do, focused as the center of attention. And we don't want to make that person feel like they should do a little tap dance right now to keep everybody entertained. So typically in this scenario, I say, don't bring anybody up there when you're doing this. It's best that the officiant make those opening remarks by themselves, goes back as quickly as possible. The processional music starts, and then everybody starts coming in. And so you'll have a couple of scenarios, for example, where it might be a wedding attendant who is also officiating. So typically, for example, you'll have the parties split when they get to the front if they're coming in 2 by 2, and it's just very easy for uh, a, a wedding attendant to, instead of split off and take their place, just step and take the center. And when their time comes, that's totally fine. If, for example, the first 2 or 3 pairs are standing there and there's no officiant there yet, but then of course the officiant walks in, takes their place, stands, and then gets everybody on their feet for example, if there's a marrier coming in, stand for the bride as is traditional. They are there to then say that. Now, of course, if you're a father of the bride, say, I get a lot of that. There's no one there to say, please stand for the bride. You might want to outsource that to a best man or somebody like that. The planner can say it from the back if they are at the door. But this is the little kind of fly in the ointment here for this perfect plan that we're spinning out here, which is you want to get everybody on their feet for the marrier who's coming in at the end, kind of as the crescendo of the processional. The way that that's accomplished typically is the officiant says, "Please stand for the bride." If that parent is escorting that person in, they're officiating. Then this is the only kind of thing we lose, is you don't have that person to say, "Please stand." And so you'll want to designate that. If you're the officiant and you're writing the script, you'll want to talk to the planner or a best man or something and say, this is the cue. Now, you might want to have a backup plan. Tell the DJ, something like that. Somebody needs to shout, "Please stand for the bride." I think it would be okay if when you enter and you saw that if somebody had dropped the ball, you could say that as well. If you're on your daughter's arm, you could say, "Please stand for the bride as you're able," because you're also the officiant. Everybody knows that. It wouldn't be a shock again that you said that. And then you enter. This is where you get to the front. And I would say that at that point, it is a good idea. I don't think you ever want to kind of leave the bride standing there alone. So I think it would be best for the other marrier to come forward and take the marrier who just came by down the aisle, get into their place, and then the officiant. So a typical parent of the bride, for example, if I'm there, I tell the parent of the bride, don't move until the couple are in place holding hands. Don't take your seat. I will tell you, please be seated with everybody else. I think the same rule applies, just because there's no awkward shuffling around there. I recommend to parents of the bride, if they're escorting the bride, for example, I would say, get there. The bride's marrier comes forward, takes her by the hand, steps forward. They are then in place holding hands at the front. And to me, that is when the officiant can move around, if it's the parent who escorted them or whatever, and then take their place and then ask everyone to be seated. Okay. That's just kind of to eliminate some of that awkward herky jerkiness there. Some people ask, what happens if there is a question to be asked? Of course, that question is typically, who gives their blessing and support? Traditionally, who gives this woman? A lot of brides say, I don't really like that. That's a little too medieval for my taste. Who gives their blessing and support? The officiant often asks that to the person escorting the bride. So in this case, it's typically a moot point. But that said, if the officiant wanted to ask all the parents, say, that is an option. They could come around, as I said, take their place and say to the other three parents by name, four parents, six parents, if there's steps involved or whatever, the couple can choose who this question gets asked to. But, Cindy and Nancy and Doug, do you give your blessing and support in Sam's marriage to Alex today? And they could say, we do. That way it works in the sense of, you're not just saying who gives. The officiant, who is also a parent, can ask the other parents if they give their blessing and support. And that, again, feels very inclusive. Whenever we're doing a wedding, we always want everyone to feel included. But of course, I should say, and of course, this is the choice of the couple who gets asked in that scenario. A lot of times, because I'm talking typically to the officiant, that they will ask the couple, and their couple will just say, oh, we don't need a question there. But it is nice on rare occasions when the parent / officiant asks the other parents if they give their blessing and support. But of course, that is always a choice of the couple. We let them make all those kinds of choices. It's their ceremony. Hopefully that was clear. That was really a gauntlet. I'm going to go jump into the chat now and see if there were any questions. If anybody is joining here who is in this situation, I'd love to hear from you if this is relevant to you. Like I say, so many people in the chat are members of Unboring Wedding Academy. I love that you're joining because this is not really relevant to you. But as Opie said, you love to be here to be part of the party on Fridays. That makes my day. Is there anyone who is, Cantor Mark is commenting here. Cantor Mark did a version of this. Like I say, you turned and you sang the blessing. That's amazing. Not a lot of us are put in that position in that kind of ceremony, but that is what you do as cantor. You're the singer as well. So that's amazing that you did a version of this for your own kid. Well, you said MAG, brilliant. So I can drop the mic and head out now. I do like to keep these to 30 minutes, like I say, so it's not an onerous watch. I want you to feel like you can jump in and have a sense of when it is done. And yes, Cantor Mark, you see that I always use Sam and Alex. I do not know why those roll off my tongue, but I do always deliberately choose, like you say, androgynousness. I am trying, as you say, and this bothers some people, which bothers me a little bit. Some people notice that I do go out of my way not to be heteronormative when I talk about brides, grooms, bridesmaids, groomsmen. I'm just going to put that on the table and say I use marrier, I use wedding attendants, just trying to be gender inclusive. If that rubs you the wrong way, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be as inclusive as I can. Okay, Scott says, any suggestions if there's no side to walk down? That would be pretty rare. If there is no side to walk down, Scott, I'm going to imagine that it is a tight space. If it's any sort of larger space, there would be a side to walk down. Otherwise, you'd be like violating all kinds of fire codes. So if it's like a patio or something, I've done this in Toronto, on the streets of Toronto, a little restaurant patio, a bistro outside with fire trucks on Queen Street going down, then it's okay to kind of go up. The aisle is typically not this opulent, flower scattered runner type of setup. Then it's okay. But if it's kind of more formal venue, even a speakeasy where the aisle is clearly the aisle, there will always be, for safety reasons, a side aisle. Just the fire marshal would want to see that. So that's what I mean. Typically, if it's kind of any sort of normal, safe wedding setup, there will be space to go around the side aisle, back up. You just don't want to, like I say, it's not a thing to go charging back up the aisle. The only time somebody goes back up the aisle is when the couple are leaving after you've pronounced them, or if it's a runaway bride and she is fleeing the scene. And I think that's where maybe some of the bad muju comes from, is like going up the aisle before both couples go is just kind of seen as like, not, it's one of those things. It's one of those superstitious do not do it's kind of thing. Let me see what I missed here. Wow, lots of awesome stuff. Maybe too much to go back to. I see Katya is here from Texas. Awesome. What did I miss? Rebecca asks, are we allowed to run this love story caster a couple times on one story? Rebecca, this is why when you purchase Unboring Wedding Academy, you get unlimited access to the love story caster. And in the first module now of Unboring Wedding Academy, the course is how to use the love story caster. Please watch that. And you will hear me say, I recommend, many people actually, it does mean having to reload the page, repaste your answers from your couple and pressing StoryCast again, and then just wait, and you will get a completely different version of the story. And I know, officiants like Gwen Downs have come on here and unabashedly said, and I encourage it and love it, she typically does 3 versions of the story and sometimes picks and chooses which paragraphs or which acts she likes best. So that is a long way of saying, when you have the love story caster, unlimited use for the same story, and yes, you will get a different result for the same answers if you don't like. As we've seen, sometimes a narrator slips in somehow. I do not know how, but some people just say, well, that's totally weird, and they try again. So absolutely run it through 2-3 times and choose which version of the story you like best, or create a hybrid that you like. Let's see. Yeah, Sabrina says yes. So there you go. Sabrina already answered your question. Chanel says, as the officiant, you try to avoid being in the processional. Absolutely, Chanel. I have never been in the processional that I can think of, because, again, when I sit down with my couple in the planning ceremony, the planning session, our wedding workshop, 4 to 6 weeks before, I say, I'm going to do opening remarks. So I'm going to be up there. That's typically how everybody understands that the ceremony is starting, is when the officiant gets up there. The point of this talk today is to say, if you're in the processional, do not jettison those opening remarks. Do not say, well, I guess we can't do opening remarks. The opening remarks are such the key ingredient to loosening everybody up, creating a great atmosphere, breaking that fourth wall from the moment you get up there. I teach an Unboring Wedding Academy. Good afternoon, everyone. And no one says anything back, like nobody. And then I always say, all right, I don't know if you know, but we have this place to ourselves. We can make some noise. Good afternoon, everybody. And then everybody's shouting back at me. And that kind of breaks the ice, pops the cork, however you want to say it. And it's all downhill from there in terms of like the ease, the fun. That's the tone you're setting. And you want to continue that. So the opening remarks are absolutely key. Do not cut those. Selena says, I'm trying to put myself back out there. Happy New Year, Selena. Do it in 2024. You've been exhausted since the move. Want to put your business back out there before you lose your momentum. It does happen, doesn't it? A little bit of rust. There are some off months in Canada, like February. Nobody gets married. So I feel it like when it's been a month or a few weeks even. I do have a vow renewal coming up, which I've never done, but you just kind of feel like, this is in the summer when you're going, you can kind of do it in your sleep. So there is something to what you're saying. Get back out there, get back on the wagon. It does, all of us feel it. Even if you've got hundreds of weddings under your belt, when you stop, getting back going is a little bit creaky. And that's true of anything, like yoga, for example. You can be super flexible, take 3 weeks off, and then you can't do the twist that you used to be able to do. Right? Chanel, I generally engage the guests as the wedding party's getting ready. Oh, wow. That's interesting. I've never done that. That's pretty cool. I try to avoid kind of looking shticky up there. I do come out strong, so I don't want people to think, well, I guess this wedding is the this guy show. So I stay away until I go up there and kind of welcome everybody, introduce myself, and do the opening remarks. But yeah, breaking the ice. Mark says I use a bunch of bulletproof laugh lines in your opening act, complete with live music cues and a song. Repeat after me. Let's make a wedding. My goodness, that's great. That I would love to be a guest in that kind of wedding. Unfortunately, I do not see that often enough. Okay, I'm going to scroll down here. Any questions? Sheila K says, I love your teaching. Thank you, Sheila. So far, I've only officiated one wedding. Thanks to your teaching. It went very well. Highly recommend your excellent teaching. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you crushed your one wedding. I'm sure word is spreading, and that will not be your last. Katia says, how should I market my officiating business? I have a course called Unboring Wedding Pro. That contains all of that stuff. The first thing, so just in a nutshell, and I gave a whole wedding MBA talk in Vegas about this, 40 minutes. So like I said, here I am trying to kind of back out of the room here. That's such a great question, Katia. The short answer, in addition to many other things I could say, is pound the pavement and network. First of all, make sure you have a Google My Business for your officiating on Google, because that's where couples are searching. But in Unboring Wedding Pro, I talk all about how it's about networking. It's about now you don't just build it and hope people come. You don't just slap something on the internet and wait. You need to get out there now and visit venues. All these people are listed. If a new fledgling officiant reached out to me and said, I'd love to pick your brain, Mark, about officiating in the province of New Brunswick, I would have a coffee with that person. If they just said, just 15 minutes, half an hour of your time, could I buy you a drink? Could we meet somewhere near you? Venue owners, can I come to your venue? I'd love to tour the place. I'd love to refer you to my clients. Again, you don't go cap in hand and say, I'm looking for referrals. You show up at venues, hotels, you ask to talk to the wedding coordinator, whatever it is, meet with planners, say, I'd love to pick your brain. I'm a new officiant in the area. Tell me about your couples. Tell me about so much of this business, like many industries, is relational. Go to a wedding show. If you're too intimidated to go to a wedding show with a booth, just go. And I've been at wedding shows where this happens a lot. New planners, new florists, they're there as guests. They've bought a ticket. They're talking to the vendors and they're saying, yeah, I'm a new wedding officiant. I love it. That's a great place to go. So you're going to have to start lubricating the relational wheels now, Katia, and being proactive. It's all about relationships. And especially if you come in with that learning posture, people are going to say, they're going to sit up and take notice and be interested in your business when you first show interest in them. Again, a lot more could be said, literally 8 hours of Unboring Wedding Pro, a full course on that. But that would be kind of the mindset that I would say enter 2024 with. Try to meet and network with the many vendors I'm sure that are in your area and all the wedding vendors. Once they get to know your name, Katia the officiant, just because you've met with them and had a conversation, the ball is going to start rolling, okay? Rebecca says, that's great. I did it all 3 times. Were awesome. Good. Okay, so you've done the Love Story Caster 3 times. They were all awesome, which, that's great. I'm not surprised when one of the iterations is sometimes a bit weird, but I, of course, use this for all my ceremonies. It has greatly cut down on the time. And I think Ben Height, who I saw here in the chat, we typically spend 10, 15 minutes chiseling a little bit, adding a punchline, maybe improving a punchline on a funny moment. And then it's good to go. Okay. Rebecca says, do you ever do private consultation? Of course, for money. Well, when you purchase Unboring Wedding Academy, you get a coaching with me on the phone. So I've never accepted money as a private consultation. I'm more of a mass communication guy, I would say. Most people who purchase Unboring Wedding Pro have gone through that program with great success. And of course, I am regularly in contact. I have jumped on the phone with somebody who said, can I get 10 minutes of your time? I'm a member. I'd like to pick your brain about this next strategy. Totally happy to do that. This is my full-time job, helping the 1,000+ members of Academy and Pro. And that's why I'm always dreaming up new things to do and new ways to help. Okay. Chanel says, you love talking with the guests. That's amazing. Okay. So That's it. I'm seeing the chat bubble down. I'm seeing people leave the room. So I just wanted to say again, you helped me smash my goal of trying to keep these to half an hour. I should sign off now because when people see a really long video, they're less likely to watch it. Thank you so much for joining me. I do plan to be on the slopes next Friday, but not if it's -15. I'll tell you that. So keep your eye open. If you're on my email list, of course, you do get told whether or not I'm here. If you're not on the email list, I'm going to say grab my guide, unboringwedding.com/guide. Grab my free guide. That'll put you on the list. If you want to be a member, unboringweddingacademy.com. And I would love to see you join all these great members and enjoy the Love Story Caster. And if you're wondering about the business side, as I get asked here, Unboring Wedding Pro is my second course all about the professional side of business, marketing, how to write copy and present yourself. It's all good stuff. You guys make my day, make my year. I love hanging out with you on Fridays, love serving you, and see you maybe next Friday if it's too cold. Otherwise, the Friday after that. Have a great weekend, everybody. Marry on. Thanks for being here.